Speaker, this is a value judgment debate from the perspective of the average individual as to whether the choice to obtain immortality possesses merits that far outweighs an inevitable and uncertain death. The focus is not on practical limitations of human society or technology, or whether or not there is even life after death, because it is impossible to quantify and to quantifiably prove pure speculation. It's a thought experiment to determine if immortality would ultimately enhance the human experience. So what does it mean to live, and by extension, how best do we maximize the value of human life? We argue that living and being alive are two dramatically different concepts. Life is not just about existing and surviving to provide for base bodily functions, but it provides each and every one of us the agency to determine how we experience life. It's a culmination of extremely personal and subjective experiences which provides us meaning in our existence. The people we interact with and form relationships with, who we choose to associate and to love, for example. The activities that we choose to engage in. All of this provides us meaning in life. The problem with all of this is that death renders all these individualistic experiences completely and utterly meaningless. Because dying wipes the slate clean. It cripples our ability to have these experiences because soon nobody would know that you were here and that you accomplished all these things. Worst of all, you even won't possess the consciousness to be aware of your own life experience. That is why we value our ability to create memory and the concept of human memory to such a great extent. The only reason we are able to attribute value to life experiences is if we are able to relive them through memory or through actual real experiences again, right? And to bask in the pleasure of doing so. Immortality preserves our life experiences forever. Ask any suicidal or depressed person that constantly thinks of death. They question the futility of life because of the inevitability of death. You lose all hope in life because what is the point? All of us has at one point or another wondered this when you're lying at home in bed. But before I go on to further this analysis as to how best we maximize life experience, one POI.
As much as he wanted to run away without characterization in this debate, he has to answer this question. In your world of immortality, would people still go through the normal aging process, or would they be in prime condition forever?
Well, we don't think this will be a pertinent issue in this debate. It's extremely subjective, it depends on whatever model. We think that the value of life and the value of immortality may vary. Whichever choice you make in preserving that immortality is ultimately up to the individual. The more important issue is whether immortality as a concept has superiority over death. We argue that death prevents us from maximizing our life experiences. Obviously, if you can live longer, you can enjoy life more. But we must recognize that death places a singular, unique constraint upon the choices we are able to access. Opp may argue that this is good because we are forced to critically evaluate and maximize any path we choose. But how can we ever accurately determine for ourselves whether any particular choice in life was the best possible one? Especially since the cost-benefit analysis of any life path is dependent on the subjectivity of the individual. Like for example, if we were to take a poll on career options, right? Whether one should pursue law and fight for justice and earn money, and whether he would derive happiness from that, or whether one should fight for humanitarian cause, we would never be able to form a singular consensus. Why? Because each of us possesses individualistic value choices that cannot be mapped out to another individual. So you can't just ask someone else who has experienced something that you might want to pursue whether you should do it. Especially since your own value judgments change over the course of your life. So the best way to maximize life experiences is not to be forced to make a choice, but is to have the ability to pursue every single possible life path. But before I go on to argue how death further constraints life experiences, last one.
Yes, obviously death constrains life experiences because when you die, you cease to exist. The question is, if you are going to live forever, why would there be any urgency at all to pursue any goals given that you have an eternity to do it?
That's fine. As long as you can take your time and choose what you want to decide to pursue, we argue that death ultimately prevents this from you maximizing any particular choice. Moreover, we argue that this places an unfair constraint on particular sections within society. For example, if you start off your life disenfranchised, like if you are poor and your options are already limited, the fact that you have a lifespan means that your ability to pursue other goals, like for example, leading the rich and high-flying life, or dedicating your life to studying, simply because you don't have enough time to accumulate the sort of resources in order to choose other life paths, this is ultimately categorically unfair for certain sections within society. And that's why people would want to choose to pursue immortality in order to fight against these sort of constraints that human society or the luck of the draw places on you. But finally and most importantly, we argue that immortality provides each individual the aiding in understanding humanity as a whole. In order to bridge human differences, we need to create empathy. In order to do that, we need to understand that each human being is fundamentally different, has fundamentally different life experiences. That is why, in order to understand another human being and to move past conflict, when you're able to put yourself physically in their shoes, that is when you bridge those sort of differences, and that is never possible when you have a limited lifespan. For all these reasons, we're very proud to propose